Right. Recording in progress. I think that means that we're live for our masterclass on fix and flip. Just a little bit of housekeeping as we move into this. So if you're in the waiting room right now, you're watching, and we're going to go through fix and flip and the masterclass and what it is. We'll do some identifying terms, and we have some case studies, and the whole way along, you guys are encouraged to ask questions. If you're watching this on like delay from the archives, or if a couple of months from now we decide to put it out on the free course or out on YouTube, if you guys join the Apex community, the way this community works best is when it's interactive, when there's lots of questions. So use the courses that we have, use the master classes that we put out to educate yourself, but then also bring your questions back to the community, and McKenna and Adon and myself will all answer, but also other people who are already in the community, they'll want to network with you. They'll want to answer your questions as well. So the more interactive that we can be, that's how we envision this community working and how it will kind of best serve everybody. So just keep that in mind. That's sort of the how to use our school community. We're brand new to this, guys, and we're going to try to get better at this each week. But let's get into it. What is fix and flip? Why am I so excited to talk about it? Fix and flip is a way that you can become a real estate investor, and it's life-changing. So for me, 25, 26 years ago, I had a job I hated, and I was ready to make a change. And I decided, after watching a guy on television late night that told me that I could buy houses with using other people's money and fix them up and sell them and make a whole big pile of money, that that's what I was going to do. So fix and flip is value add real estate investing. And I say all the time, if you watch our YouTube channel or if you've heard me talk anywhere, I probably say, hey, I'm Robbie Krager, the Flip Flop Flipper. I'm a value add real estate investor. That means I'm a fix and flip guy, right? I'm buying stuff that is distressed, that needs work, and then fixing it up and putting it back out on the market at its highest price, at its highest and best use. I'm turning the ugly house in the neighborhood, the ugly duckling, into the beautiful swan and flipping it, right? And through doing that, you can make chunks of cash. So also, before we really go much further in this, I'd love to hear, even in the chat, how many people who are on now sort of took advantage of watching the class that we've got out there. So we've got one class in the school section on Apex, and I hope that some of you guys have watched it. We'd love to hear your feedback. Again, we're brand new to this, guys, and we'll make changes to it over time as we get questions and as we realize that we sort of left something out. So for me, this is like second nature. And one thing that I realized in watching the class back is that there are some things that are just natural to me, some terminology that I use, that I think about, or some things that I think that most people or everybody should just know. And so I might glaze over a subject or skip it altogether. So if you guys are letting me know what it is where I've missed something, and by asking questions, then that'll give us a chance to go back in and record that section over and sort of fill in those gaps. And that's what the masterclass here tonight will be about as well, is we want to fill in any gaps that we may have missed inside of the course that we put out. So hopefully that makes some sense. McKenna, you want to jump in here and say hi to everybody, and then we'll let Adon say hi, and we'll move on from there.
Hey guys, glad to be here. If you have any questions throughout it, put them in the chat, and then we're going to bring people up just like we did last week for the hot seat. So looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, and we'll also, guys, we're going to go through this masterclass and we'll use real life examples. So Adon has his first flip, McKenna's got his first flip to talk about, and at some point in here, I'll briefly talk to you about my first flip. And so that'll sort of be the theme. We'll use our first flip as kind of the springboard to get into the conversation. So what is fix and flip, and how's it benefited me? I think that's a good place to start. I told you earlier, it's buying something, fixing it up with the plan to resell it. For me, it was a game changer, right? That first piece of real estate that I bought, I guess I'll talk about my first flip right now, and then we'll see if there's any questions. That first piece of real estate that I bought as I was leaving a job, like quit my job on a Tuesday, bought a house that by the next Tuesday, I'm not sure how quick it was, but it was really fast, right? I had no credit, no money, and no job because I just quit. So I kind of burned all the bridges and jumped in feet first, just kind of young and dumb and had no idea what I was going to do, but I needed to feed my family. And that first deal, one of the best deals, I look at back at it and think this is one of the best deals that I've ever done. And it was a complete train wreck, a disaster. For me, it was my first deal, the first of more than a few thousand. For my partners who went in on that deal with me, they never did another one. So just think about that for a second, right? Like if I didn't have the fortitude to move on to the next one, or if I had had a job to go back to, even probably I would have stopped with that first experience. So both of my partners, they were kind of dabbling in it. They got their little toe in the water. I did what I said. I jumped all in. I mean, this was my only way to put money in the bank and to put food on the table. So I think that was one of the key differences between myself and many people, especially those partners that I started out with. One of them was one of my good friends, and the other one was his father-in-law. And once we got through halfway through this first flip, they were done. They were like, this isn't going to work for me, but I didn't have a choice, guys. So I'm just telling you that it's okay to take that leap and to jump in and to get started. And I even encourage people to burn their bridges. Like, right. I'm not a guy who waits a long time. If I see something I want, I go for it. And the heart of our entire educational channel on YouTube or on school is always going to be geared towards doing real estate deals. It's always going to be, Robbie, is if I'm having a conversation with someone new, I'm going to push and prod and try to find out, when are you going to take that first step? When are you going to buy that first house? What's holding you back? And so I'm happy to have those conversations with you guys. You can use me inside of the chat of this platform, use me today inside of the conversation. But expect that if you're asking me questions, I'm going to answer the questions, but I'm also going to be pushing and trying to encourage you to take the leap, to take the step and get started. You want to say something to Don? You look like you got something to say.
Nope.
Nope.
It's the best decision I ever done.
Yeah. So, and with the Don, this is great. We're going to get into his first flip, but I'll finish my story. So I bought a house on Pomelo Drive, and I don't have pictures. I remember I bought it for $36,000. And like I said, I'd quit my job. I had bad credit and I had no money. So I borrowed $3,000 from my wife, and each of my friends also had $3,000. So we had a total of $9,000 between three people. And we used hard money to make the purchase. And we were going to use our $9,000 to do the renovation with and the closing costs. So we had the cash to close, to make a couple of payments, and we were going to do the renovation 100% with our own labor. So all we had to do was pay for materials, and we went about it, man. We bought that house. We started renovating it. We were there working hard, 40, 50 hours a week for like the first week. The second week, we're there 40 hours. The third week, one of the guys stopped showing up altogether. The fourth week, I'm there alone by myself. And guys, I'm the only one of the three that had absolutely no skill whatsoever to finish the house. So eventually we did get it finished, and that flip was supposed to be a buy, fix, and sell. It was meant to be a 3-month process. And I ended up buying out my partners and keeping the house for more than a year. It turned into a rental property just because it wasn't selling, and I was having a bad partnership, and I had to figure out another way to get some money to finish it. I learned so much by doing that first flip that I just see it as probably, if it's not the best deal that I ever did, because maybe something was more fun because I made a whole bunch of money. It's really close. It's the first best deal I did, or the second best deal I did ever, because I learned so much, and because of what it allowed me to do, what it allowed me to become. McKenna, what do you got?
Well, if we're ready, we can jump right into my house, 1818 Willow Lane. Adon's got some photos here, guys, but this was my first flip. that I did in Orlando. This was almost 4 years ago now, which feels crazy because it feels like I just bought the thing. But this was a hoarder house. I was at the time real estate wholesaling, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, but that means I was cold calling people out of the blue. I was the guy when your phone rang and someone said, "Hey, do you have a house to sell? Tell me about it. Are you interested?" That was me. So I was calling and calling and calling. And this house happened to be 15 to 20 minutes from where I live. Um, I got it under contract for $210,000. And I knew immediately that it was a deal. The houses in the neighborhood, I don't have comps now from 4 years ago, but at the time, renovated houses were selling for 350,000. I know it looks bad in the photos, but to me, it was all cosmetic. It was a hoarding house. The entire house was filled with stuff just like this. So I had to get all the stuff out. I had to do all the cosmetic, but all of the bones of the house were good, which to me is an easy renovation. Um, I paid my broker $30,000 just to get that deal. So we had it under contract for 210. I ended up buying it from our group for 240 with two partners. Um, the way that I funded the deal, I did a partnership with my good friend Tate. Um, we were hanging out together all the time. He was a kitchen cabinet wholesaler and countertop wholesaler, uh, selling to DR Horton, Lanier, guys like those. So he had contacts with renovators, with construction guys. I had this house. And then through Tate, we actually went and approached his cousin to do the funding for the deal. So we did a 50-50 split where his cousin got half of the deal for putting up the money. Me and Tate did all of the work and we got half of the deal. So I got 25%, Tate got 25%. We put it together. It took us 3 months. We spent, I think, 70,000, maybe 60,000 on the renovation. So I'm all in on this thing for 310. And then we had to decide, are we going to sell it? What is the plan here? And we were able to go and get a loan on the property, do a cash out refi. So I actually got $15,000 in my pocket. Tate got 15,000. David got 30. So we all had a nice payday. And then we put a renter in there for 2 years. And this property actually just sold for 410,000, I want to say. 410,000 after our refi. So not including the cash out we already got. We got another 80,000 on top of that. And this was my first flip. I knew what a good deal looked like just from looking at hundreds of them. I was already wholesaling properties, but the math worked. I had the contractors ready to go. Through Tate, we were able to get funding, and the deal went really smoothly. So yeah, that's my flip. If you guys have questions about any of that process, please put them into the chat, and I'm happy to go into more detail of any aspect of that, or to tell you exactly what parts of it I did and how I did it. Adon, do we want to go into your? Oh, go ahead.
Before we do, let's keep talking about your deal, because I'm just looking at what you did and the pictures of the house, knowing the area you bought your house in, comparing it back to my house. I wish I had pictures of it on Palmetto Drive. It was a crack house, guys. It was in a terrible neighborhood. When my wife lent me the $3,000, she handed me the money and she said, "I know you're going to lose this money. This is a terrible idea. This is a horrible place to buy a house. Don't do it." But I say that, one, to compliment you, McKenna. You did a much better job on your first flip. It looks beautiful than we had ended up doing. But there are a couple of other takeaways. When I started out, $9,000 was enough money for us to close on the house. So,
Wow.
that paid the points, that paid a couple of months worth of interest, and it gave us enough money to buy all the materials to renovate a house. And when I say renovate, we redid every wall in the house. We rewired the house. We replumbed the house, new roof, everything that you could think of, new doors and windows. It was a complete shell of a crack house. The only thing that was still standing that we didn't touch were the block walls, right? And
Wow.
I did that in a D- area. You did yours in a B+, maybe A- area, that where this house is. And
Yep.
and I just want to point out, that you can make money in the fix and flip investment world. And it doesn't matter if you're buying in A, B, C, or D area. The trick is to buy the ugliest house in the neighborhood. And if you saw the pictures of the before for McKenna's house, it was a pretty ugly house. And then if you look at the after pictures when he sold it for 400, it's no longer an ugly house. Even for myself on my house on Pomelo Drive, the before pictures are a boarded up shell of a house, and the after pictures, the house looked pretty good. So I provided, just like McKenna did on my flip, the value add that brought the house up to be worth whatever the top of the market was. I mean, back in the day, we bought it for like 36. We were spending 9 to renovate it and hold it. And we were hoping to sell it for like 65 or 70. That was a good flip back in the day. McKenna, you did similar numbers from top of the market to where you bought it at, right? I mean, we could have made
Sure.
25 or 30% if everything had gone well for us. And your math was about the same when you were thinking out. You managed to hold it for a couple years and then do better than I think you anticipated originally. Is that right?
Yeah, we had a renter in there for I want to say 2,900 a month for 2 years, and our payment on that was 2,400. So we were paying down the mortgage a bit. We were cashing $400 a month, and then the house was appreciating as well. I think the day we finished renovations, it was worth 360, 370, and just for holding it 2 years, we made that additional $40,000 while paying down our mortgage, while getting income. So it was pretty sweet.
And on my deal, we thought it would be worth 65 or so, and it wouldn't sell. So I ended up keeping it as a rental property as well. I think for 2 or 3 years, and I ended up eventually selling it for $109,000 or $110,000. So I did significantly better. And at that point, I'd bought out all of my partners back down at the like $60,000 level, and I got that upside. So that worked out for me. I had to go through the pain, and it was very painful. My property, I can remember the gunshots would start every night at dusk, and we got the house completely renovated. And then for like 3 months, the kids would break into the house and shoot out all the lights, like at least once a week. It was pretty fun, that first deal. Do we have some questions yet inside of the chat, you guys? I don't want to move too fast on this, and I want to give you guys a chance to ask all your questions. I promise if you've got a question on fix and flip, I think I could probably give you a real life example of a time that we've answered that question through doing a fix and flip. So ask questions. Adon, you have questions?
So what was your biggest takeaway from like your first flip? You know, did you already know where you were going to find the money? Did you have a list of contractors? I know you spoke about it a little bit, but like you must have some base, right? Or you should start it from zero.
So I'll answer this, and then McKenna, you answer it as well. I think that would be great. I literally had quit my job, and I was looking in the paper to buy a piece of real estate, and I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do it. Very fortunately for me, there was a wholesaler in town called RealNet, and they had sort of perfected this fix and flip business. They would go out and contract a house and then wholesale it to a person like me who wanted to buy it. And they had also lined up the hard money, and they had lined up a mortgage broker who would do the takeout debt for when we finally found the end buyer. So I walked in and went and saw 3 houses with the guy and picked one and said, I'll take it. And I had to give $500 as a deposit. And then I had to talk to the hard money lender and qualify for the hard money loan. And then close very quickly. And so it was a super fast transition for me. I remember just it was like a whirlwind. I quit that job, was looking for houses, and found something. I probably wasn't nearly picky enough. Bought in a bad neighborhood. To Adon's point, I didn't have anything lined up. I didn't know anything about. I didn't know the questions to ask even. I was that green. Like I was determined to be a real estate investor, and that's really the only thing I had going for me. McKenna? you might have had a little bit more going for you because you watched me do this your whole life. I don't think
Yes, I
there
grew up.
wasn't much of a time that you were like alive and coherent that we weren't doing a flip somewhere.
Yep. My entire life, I learned how this process worked, and then on top of that, I was a wholesaler before I started doing my flips. So I'd already been looking at properties all day, every day, comping them out, running the numbers. I mean, I would be looking at hundreds of properties a week and making offers on all of them. And so I've gotten very quick at knowing how to do the math. Um, and then that also exposed me to this deal where, because I was doing that process, I was able to find, I think, a steal of a deal in a really good neighborhood. And then I didn't have the contractors lined up, but I knew Tate knew some. And that
Yeah.
was good enough for me. I was like, we can at least go and find these guys to do the work for us. And that was kind of his portion of the partnership as well. So instead of me having to think about that, I just said, hey, Tate, you're going to get a quarter of this deal. And your whole job is managing the renovation. You got to be there every day. You got to show up. You got to make sure the contractors are there. You're going to manage the quotes, the bids, and everything. My portion of the partnership was finding the deal, uh, and selling the deal at the end, and managing the rental when we had it as a renter, or when we had a renter in there. My biggest takeaway from it, oh, there's a few, but probably the thing that I would do differently in the future is the amount of control I had over that deal. I wish I had more of it. I wish that I was more in the driver's seat and that I could make all of the decisions immediately, uh, without my partners. I felt like they slowed down the process more than they needed to, just because they were all brand new. They were a little bit scared, and I was like, "Hey guys, let's go, let's go, let's go." I was pushing, pushing, pushing. So that's something to think about as well in these partnerships. Of, are you partnering with people with experience, or are they just as new as you? And how does that work for you? Um, Another takeaway is you need to make hundreds of offers. I know we're both talking about deals like they're easy to find, but we look at every single email that comes in, all of the wholesalers that send out deals every day. If there is a good deal, they go quickly, and you just need to be on top of it and you need to be looking at houses and making offers. Um, and I'm going to back that up just a little bit as well. When you're making these offers, you want to be where your all-in cost is 70% of the ARV, after renovation value. If you guys have watched the course, we go really into detail on this, but that's just saying that the purchase price plus the renovations is equal to 70% of ARV, and that gives you the room to make profit when you go to sell it. Even if something bad happens and you have to decrease the price, you're still going to make money. Uh, I have a real life example of that, but I'm going to throw it back to you guys over in the studio, and uh,
You
let me know if we want to keep
you
going
brought
on
up
there.
some things that I think are important to add here. So McKenna knew what comps looked like and what his property was worth after repaired. He was skilled at that. When I first started, guys, I was completely relying on the guy who was selling me the house. Now, this is not the situation that you want to find yourself in. Again, I didn't know what I didn't know, and a guy, said, "Hey, you could buy this house for $36,000. You could fix it up for, 8 or 10 grand more, and then you'll sell it for $65,000." Whose phone's ringing? And so I lost my train of thought there. So I completely took him at his word for it, right? So I don't advise this, and kind of probably half of what you can learn from me if you're in the community with me, if you're watching YouTube, or if I'm doing these master classes, is learn from my mistakes, learn from the stuff where I did it wrong, because I really did things the hard way. To McKenna's point, had I looked at more than 3 houses before I chose which one to buy and completely rely on the wholesaler who was selling me the house, I probably wouldn't have bought that first house. There would have been something else. In fact, I know of the 3 houses that I looked at and the one that I chose, there was at least one of the other 2 houses that I think was a better deal, but it was $45,000 and it just freaked me out because that extra $10,000 was like all the money in the world to me. But if I had it to do over again, I would have studied more of the comps and I would have studied more of the areas. For an extra $10,000 or so, I could have bought a property that was in significantly better neighborhood. It was just scary for me because the difference was a $350 a month mortgage payment or a $450 a month mortgage payment. And keep in mind, I didn't have a job and I really didn't have any money. This was that amount of money was scary enough for me to just go, all right, screw it. We're going with the cheapest one we can get. And we'll just believe everything you say. Let's do it. We'll close tomorrow. So don't do that. Be a little bit more picky than me. So when I say jump in with both feet, I like the idea that you guys are here in this school community. You've got a course to rely on. You've got a community of people who are doing stuff. I know that it's not just McKenna and Adon and I that are doing stuff. There are other people who have experience, even other people on the call right now that have significant experience that you can rely on and network with and do deals together.
Got questions.
We have
Adon,
a
I saw some
question.
questions come in. Yeah, you want
Nice.
to bring them on?
Let's see what the question is.
So
And
let's start with Julio and then we'll go down the list.
yeah, let's bring Julio on and let him ask his question.
Julio, I'm gonna ask you to mute. If you could turn on your camera, it'd be great.
Julio, unmute.
I'm here.
You got your
I'm here.
camera
I'm
on
here.
or no?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you great.
All right, let me just activate the camera real quick. All right. So my question, well, I have 2 questions. Actually, can you see me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So my first question is there like a tool that we can use to avoid buying in a bad neighborhood, or maybe, buying in a bad neighborhood doesn't matter?
I've made a fortune buying in bad neighborhoods, so I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't. I mean, honestly, of the 3,000 homes that I've probably done, I would say the vast majority of them are in neighborhoods that I probably didn't want to live in. And in fact, I know that for the last 25 years, I have bought house after house after house that my friends go, I would never buy in that neighborhood, or I would never buy that house. And I'm like, okay, but there are people that live in these neighborhoods. There are people that want to have a nice place to live. And here's a little side note. The lower end market, they pay substantially more of their revenues towards housing than the wealthier markets do. So there's a wider gain. There's an arbitrage there. I think you can buy it in the low price in the neighborhood, and when you lift it up to the top of the market, you get a pretty significant lift percentage wise. So
even here on the island, like any house that you after repair value is $150,000, it goes like that. It doesn't last a month in the market.
yeah.
Usually it sells
Yeah.
really, really fast compared to anything higher than that.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Thank you, Adon. So when I was starting out and buying, Jose, in these poorer neighborhoods, or in the, let's call them D plus C neighborhoods, Julio, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm taking notes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I said your name wrong though. When I was buying there, I can remember having 2 flips in a not so great neighborhood and 1 in a higher end neighborhood, and I would put them on the market in the lower neighborhoods. I would get hundreds of calls to sell them. So my advertisement would be like, buy this house with $500 down, and I would try and qualify them for an FHA loan. And I would get hundreds of people that any one of them that I could get qualified for a loan would absolutely buy my house. And then when I was in the higher end neighborhood, like McKenna's house, I would get very few calls, and many of them would come and they'd pick the house apart. So everyone would be qualified to buy it, but they wouldn't buy it. But in the lower end market, it was about a payment, and it was about being able to get people qualified. So as a fix and flip guy, I kind of gravitated towards that early on. I did both ways, but I liked that I would get tons of calls. And I knew that if I took someone to a house and could get them qualified for a loan. And by the way, if you're going to become a fix and flip guy, you're going to learn about how to get people qualified for a loan. You're going to learn the ratios that FHA needs. I learned all of that on that first house or the first couple of houses that I did. So that was one reason that I kind of gravitated towards the lower end of the market, was because I just knew that once I stuck that sign in the yard, my phone would ring off the hook. And as long as I got someone qualified, they were going to take the house.
Go ahead.
At this moment right now, I have 2 houses for sale. One is $785,000 in Winter Park, one of the best neighborhoods in Orlando. And it's been on market now for 67 days. It just went pending last week. And it took me, showings 4 or 5 times a week. People were there all the time. It's very difficult to sell. I just listed another house for $200,000 out in Apopka. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, wood frame house, very small. I just went pending today at 14 days on market, and I'm gonna make more money on that Apopka $200,000 house than I am on this $700,000 house, mostly because of the amount of time. Because the renovation went long, and then the sale went long, and it cost me $5,000 a month just to own the thing and debt service. Whereas my $200,000 house, my debt service, I think, is $650, and I can hold it forever and not even be close to losing the amount of money that I lost in 1 month holding my expensive home. So that's another thing to consider.
And think about this. So the $200,000 house is significantly below the median, and the $750,000 is kind of significantly above the median. So you have a lot more people that are going to qualify for the $200,000 house than you do that are going to qualify for the $750,000 house.
Yeah.
Plus the people at 200,000, they're not nearly as picky. They're happy to be buying a house, and they're going to own a house, and they know this is my first house. They're going to get in it, and then hopefully they'll own it for 5 or 10 years, and then they'll move on to the next step up, the $500,000 house, and then step up again later on in life. So I still gravitate towards kind of the bottom part of the market. I've made a fortune there, so I love it.
Nice.
Excellent.
I think Julio had another question.
What's your other question, Julio?
Let me just go and pull it up here real quick from the okay. So when you said that you were showing up during renovations, how did that look? Like, how many hours? Was there like a scope of work that you were handed over, or like a completion schedule that you were following?
When you're putting something together with the contractors.
So I think what you're asking is how do we come up with a scope of work for a flip? And can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Coming up with that scope of work, what needs to be done, right? And would the GC hand you over like a schedule of completion? Okay, so by week 1, we should maybe do all the demolition, and week 2 we should be doing all of this and that, and you would be showing up on a daily basis. That's what I would do on a daily basis. But for how long? How did that look, more or less?
Okay, I can answer the question in a couple of different ways, because they're different answers depending on where you're at in the world. And for me, I run a business where we renovate homes in Florida, and you get one answer there. And I have the same business here on the island of Puerto Rico, and it's significantly different. So, and McKenna, you can answer this as well. But for me, that scope of work in the States, I'm trying to renovate the house in 30 days to 60 days. That's my timeline. And I can do in Orlando, Florida, a pretty significant renovation, like everything. It needs floors, doors, windows. It needs it all. I can do that renovation in 60 days. That same renovation on the island of Puerto Rico, I wouldn't even start to dream that I could get it done in 60 days. Like,
90.
if I think that I'm going to get it done in 30 days in Orlando, it's probably at least 90 days in Puerto Rico. So if I thought 60 days, it could be 180 days. And it's pretty typical, a half a year, sometimes a year on the renovations in Puerto Rico is not abnormal at all. So there is a reason still that I prefer to buy my flips probably in Puerto Rico over Orlando, Florida. And the really simple one is the math. I can buy, to Adon's point, I can buy a house that I'm going to sell for $150,000 fixed up in Puerto Rico. I can still today go out and find a house that I can buy for $35, $40, $45,000 and then fix it up and then expect to sell it for $150,000. And I can find that house pretty easily. Like that wouldn't take me very much effort. I'd go out and I'd look at some things and I'd have to make some offers, but that's a for sure thing that's out there. In Florida, I'd have a much harder time finding that property and my margin would be smaller. So I've found that on the island of Puerto Rico, when we're doing flips and we've done, I don't know, we've probably only done 75 or so flips. So it's not a huge amount, but it's a pretty significant amount. Our floor has been like 40%. Like if we make 40%, we're going, that kind of sucked, because we're usually making like 60, 80, 100, even more. And then in Central Florida, I do a flip. If I make 20%, I'm ecstatic. It's like, hey, I made 20%. Let's take a picture. Everybody's going to dinner. I mean, we crushed it. And that's the difference, right? I can do things faster in Florida, but I just don't see the margins. And that's also why I came to Puerto Rico.
Just to add
So
to,
I want to bring it. Oh, go ahead, Adon.
yeah. What I would say, and this is my experience, is you can always go take the what do you call it, the guy that does it all, the general contractor that does the plumbing and electric and all that stuff. I've been burned twice this way on 2 different projects. The guy that comes, does it all, asks for the big chunk of the money ahead, and then just completely kills it. What I would do for my next flip, and what I'm gonna do, is I'm just gonna break down in the scope of work the things that need to be done, and I'm gonna set my own timelines. And then instead of hiring the one guy that could do it all, I could hire that guy, but I'll take him through steps. I'm like, all right, I'll give you just the money for the demo. Here you go. You know, all right, you did the demo. Okay, we're gonna start breaking walls next week, this and that, you know, and pay him through chunks instead of, hey, let's break it into 4 phases. Here's 25%, and let's see how, you know.
Yeah. Because
how far we get until I
sometimes
get
they will
fucked.
cheat. They will cheat on you, because they will go like, okay, I need to, you know, I'll make sure I take a lot of time doing this task that I can finish in a week.
And it's not only that. I also found out, you know, the contractor, if he's good, he's working on another project before he gets on yours. But then he's using the money for your project to pay for materials or whatever the other project is. And then when it gets to you, you're like, oh, well, I need more money. I'm like, but I gave you all the money you needed to start. So things when you're doing business down here, I haven't done anything in Florida, but at least down here,
It is
I take it step by
absolutely the
step,
same in Florida.
and I'll pay for all
the universal truth, what you just said. You have to, and Julio, I like what you said as well. Showing up every day to your job site.
Yes,
100%. Super important, right? Like, one of the main reasons that we live in Puerto Rico rather than just invest in Puerto Rico is because I've tried the long distance renovations before and they just don't work for me. I'm able to renovate houses in Orlando, Florida because McKenna's in Orlando, Florida, or TJ's in Orlando, Florida, or Drew Schaffner's in Orlando, Florida, and I partner with these guys. If it was just me from here trying to do it, it never goes as well. And it'll always take longer. So, and I'm actually going through that right now, renovating a house in Jacksonville, Florida, that my contractor died a month and a half or 2 months ago. And I just got the job started back today. I think we're 60 days past the time that he died. It was tragic that my guy died about halfway through and I had to start again, but it took me 60 days because I'm not there. Right. And then I forget for 2 weeks that I'm supposed to do that. And I like the idea of being there every day. So that's a key.
So Julio, I'd like to rein it back in a little bit too for best practices that I use for contractors. To me, it's very important that you get multiple bids when you're first starting, because there are contractors out there that work for your mother and they'll renovate her kitchen for $40,000. And then there's contractors that work for flippers and they are going to be, you know, they could do the same kitchen that they could do for your mother for 40 grand for $15,000. So it's very important that you go and get multiple bids on these deals. Especially on your first ones. You're going to meet people and build a team, and it'll get a little bit more streamlined. And then when you're doing your scope of work, contractors are notoriously unorganized. So it is better for you to do the organization and to come up with the timeline. Maybe not come up with the timeline, but to organize the schedule of, okay, first we do this, then we do this, then we do this. How long is each of those things going to take, and have it in writing. Another thing that you have to do with these renovations, you need detailed quotes with prices per item in writing. If they just tell you one thing, it will absolutely be different in 3 weeks because neither of you can remember what the exact deal was. If it's not in writing, it doesn't matter. Even like I have a contractor that I love. I'm doing deal number 7 with him right now. And I still fight with him over little things that we don't have in writing, where I'm like, Ronald, you told me you'd do this. He told me that it's not included. It's not in the quote. So he has to charge me more. So everything in writing is super important.
Don and I are just laughing because and I've been doing this for 26 years now, almost. It's always been that way, right? Like, so when you're in this business of buying, fixing, and selling, fixing is the most important part of your job. You know, first you got to buy it right. That's the very most important thing you can do. And then the next most important thing, you got to fix it. And when you're in that stage, you're going to get the best work, the best price, and they're going to do it the fastest when you first start your relationship with them. And then a year or two down the road, they're going to think you're some rich real estate investor, and they're going to give you a much higher price. It's going to take them twice as long, and their work is going to be garbage. And so you're always fighting with people, and even the ones you love. Like, there will come a day where McKenna has to fire Ron. That's been kind of the story for me for 25 years. Unfortunately, it's been one that's repeated itself again and again. So you're constantly on the look for someone who can do the work for you at a good price, fast and cheap, right? Normally you can get 2 of the 3, but not 3 of the 3, but you're always going to have that struggle. So just remember that this is something that will always be a big, important part of what you're doing.
Okay. We got a question from Frank. I think you're unmuted, Frank. If you want to ask your question here.
Okay, this is
Hey,
primarily.
Frank.
How you doing?
Good.
This is primarily for Florida because I don't know if this will apply to Puerto Rico. Okay, if you fired a contractor and he placed a mechanics lien, against your property, and how did you handle it, and what do you do now to avoid that risk? And then there's another comment I have on what you said previously on something else.
McKenna, have you recently had an experience with these mechanics lien? I know that last year you were having a guy who was threatening to put a mechanics lien on your 24th Street house, and he hadn't done the work. How did you handle that?
So the biggest thing that you need is a written contract. That is what will protect you from these mechanics liens, where not only is it written that it's like, you don't want just a little blurb that says I will renovate the whole house. You want specific line items to where you can go into the property and say, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, and these are all on the quote. And if you did get a mechanics lien, they're pretty easy to fight. If you have that written contract, you just show up to court and you have photos, you have your contract. You say, hey, he said he would do this. Here's the photo of it not done. He said he would do this. Here's the photo of it not done. And you probably want to get an attorney, but also those liens only last for a year if they aren't taking the proper steps. So I had a contractor that was threatening me with a mechanics lien, and he also threatened to call code enforcement on me because I do a lot of my renovations without permits. Yeah, if I'm going to put a kitchen in, I just do it because the permit process is broken and it takes months, and that's a whole nother conversation. But he was going to call code enforcement on me. He was going to put a mechanics lien on the house. He was going to do all of these things. And what I did was I had the locks changed so he couldn't have access. I covered up the windows so code enforcement couldn't see in, even if he did call them. And then I told him to fuck off. And he didn't do the work. And if he even put the lien on, I was going to fight it. And that is it. Do you have a property that has a mechanics lien on it?
No, I was just curious. I mean, I'm going to primarily focus in Puerto Rico, but you never know what
Yeah.
may happen locally here.
That
And
can happen here.
Yeah, so I wonder about mechanics liens. We don't have any experience with mechanics liens on the island of Puerto
Okay.
Rico. Also, that while there is somebody that they can call if you're not permitted and stuff, it's really not as big of an issue as it is like in Central Florida, where there are a dozen people in their brand new F-150s that they make their living driving around trying to find people like McKenna putting a kitchen in without having a permit. That doesn't happen here too much on the island of Puerto Rico. You're pretty much left alone unless you're making big alterations in a very visible place
Or in a closed neighborhood.
or in a closed
something.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
I have another story, McKenna, that came to mind, you know, on the flip we're doing right now in Winter
Yep.
Park on Kingswood. We were putting a roof on, and the roofer without coming to us decided he was going to charge us nearly twice as much as what our quote was because he had to change some wood. He had some wood rot. And I can remember kind of a day not too long ago, a month or two, where McKenna was on the phone with him and they were going back and forth and fighting him. And I heard this guy telling McKenna he was going to put the mechanics lien on. And I'm like, give me the phone. And I was like, listen, you're threatening us. You go do what you got to do. We're just not going to pay you anything. We were negotiating with them, trying to get the price to something reasonable. And he threatened to put that mechanics lien on it. And so I sort of got pissed off and said, we'll fight you. I have deeper pockets than you. And if you want to put a mechanics lien on it, I'll go to court and we won't pay you anything. And he backed up and he backed down. And then we got back to where we negotiated and we paid him. We had him submit the amount of money that it cost for the materials. We paid for the materials and for his extra time, but we didn't let him bully us into doubling our bill, right? It was already a $20,000 roof. I wasn't going to pay 40 for it. But I think negotiating and not letting people walk over you, is important.
Yes.
I think that's important.
People love to threaten. They love to bluster, but people don't follow through. They're not going to put the lien on there. And if they do, you just have to fight them. And it's just a process like everything else.
And I can be stubborn, and I'm not suggesting you guys do this, but my thought was that if the guy did put the mechanics lien on it and I had to spend an extra few $1,000s fighting him, so hiring a lawyer to fight him, at that point in the moment when I was pissed off and not thinking clearly, I was like, well, I'd rather give the money to the lawyer than give the money to this guy. So yeah, so again, you don't have to be like Robbie, just learn from Robbie.
It's more likely here on the island that the contractor would take the money and leave and never come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have something here called DACO, which is like what you would
Better
call
Business Bureau.
like Better Business Bureau.
Uh-huh.
If the contractor's on that list, you can go after the Better Business Bureau or DACO and go sue him for the money and do all this stuff. But it really doesn't affect the contractor too bad, because at the end of the day, he can establish a new corporation, get a new license, and go back and do this to somebody else again. So it's them putting any type of lien or anything like that here on the island. It's just,
yeah, I don't know.
more likely that
I don't
they're
know
not.
about the mechanics lien. There must be a system for it, but
No,
we
I've
haven't we haven't come over
the
it.
contractors
at
don't
all.
finish, so they'll leave anyway.
Yeah, we
And-
definitely in the island of Puerto Rico, we have more of the bad experience of people grabbing some money and then disappearing.
Yeah.
So
But
you
you-
want to do what McKenna and Adon both said, pay them along the way or steps as they complete work, because handing a big chunk of money to someone who's never had a big chunk of money before, that is a recipe for disaster.
Okay, we got a question
And-
from. Go ahead.
You also mentioned that you can purchase a house 35 to 45K, and you were sold it for about 150. But the thing is, like, what types of neighborhoods Adon and you were looking at when you did that, and was it single family residential?
Yeah, great question. So I like buying cheap houses. I said that earlier. And the island of Puerto Rico, if you get outside of the metro area, you can find you can find 3-bedroom, 2-bath block homes. Everything's a block home on the island. So they're going to be well built. They're definitely going to be distressed. You know, maybe they're bank owned, maybe it's an estate, but you can find them in pretty much town after town. So I remember we bought a house at an auction in Caguas that was up in the mountains, and it was a top and bottom duplex. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath on the top, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath on the bottom. I paid 15 grand for it. And McKenna was here working for me, and we renovated the house, and we sold it for what, $115,000, McKenna?
Yep.
So think about
I
that
was-
though,
I
guys. Bought
sold
it for
that one.
15, sold it for 115. And we didn't do a huge renovation. We probably did a $20,000 renovation.
Wow.
And that was,
Yeah, we
That's
had a
pretty
surprise
cool.
septic tank on that one, and that was our big expense. But everything else was paint, installing new kitchens, and making sure everything worked.
so I've gotten away from going to those auctions and buying those smaller deals. At least I've gotten away from it for the last couple of years, but I honestly believe that they are still out there. The reason that I've gotten away from them is because I put us into situations where we're doing much larger renovations, and I just haven't had the time to focus on going out and finding those. But I really think if you get outside of the metro, and even if you're looking on classificados, I think you can find things really reasonably priced that fixed up are going to sell for 125 to 150,000.
Facebook Marketplace is a good place too.
And that
find a lot
that
of good stuff there,
$15,000 house, guys, was a good
Yeah.
neighborhood. That $15,000 house in Caguas, that was a good neighborhood. Like that, nothing shady about it, not scary, just a nice, good working class neighborhood, a solid block house that, you know, and the guy who bought it from us is probably renting out the downstairs and living upstairs and living very, very cheap.
Yeah, it's a nice house.
All right, I'm gonna move on to Ismael. Let's see if we can get him to unmute. Oops, I muted him again.
Thank you guys for all of the good questions.
guys.
This is great. Hey, Ismail, how are you?
Very good, very good. I have a million questions, but let's choose one. Let's choose one, because the truth of the matter is that I have property. I don't have a property. My father has a property which I want to buy and acquire for him. Is the property needs a lot of renovation. So I was thinking of maybe getting a construction loan, redo the house. The house is 1 floor. I wanted to do 2 floors and maybe do 4 units in the.
Yeah.
The property is located in Carolina, so I found out that I cannot do more than 4 units in the property because there is a requirement for the parking. So I do comply with the requirement for the parking for 4 units, but not for more than that. So my question is, where do I start with that? Should I get a loan from a bank, like a construction loan? Should I go to a private lender? Should I, and then refinance once the property is done? If I eventually want to finance the property, or I mean, remodel the property and then refinance it to lower the cost of financing, should I
So
need
do
to
you,
know like how to qualify the property in order to qualify for FHA? So you know the construction code that it complies with all of that. So it's a bunch of questions just in just one property.
do you own it or your dad own it?
My dad owns it, but
Do you have a
he's
contract with him?
He's very open to do any business with me. It's because he's not doing anything with the property. So I can.
Well,
I
he would
don't
let you get a mortgage on the house. If you found a hard money lender, they would be able to come into a first mortgage position. Your father would be okay with that.
Yes.
And the house, I'm assuming, needs a lot of work, so it doesn't qualify today for like a traditional FHA loan or
Correct.
VA loan, right?
Correct.
Have you gotten quotes to fix it? You know how much it's going to cost you to make the 4 units?
I need to get those. I do got an estimated is about, if I went to do like a second floor, that's like $50,000 to $60,000 for 2 units.
Yeah.
But I need to redo the whole property.
So if you're
Yeah.
going to redo the whole property, let's say it's going to cost $75,000. And what do you think the property's value would be worth after the renovations?
Is it
What part of Carolina
yeah,
are you
what
in?
part of Carolina? I could tell you probably.
Yeah.
Country club.
Maybe in the 300s.
Where is this?
Country club. That's
Oh, country club.
yeah.
Yeah. If you have a 4-bedroom, if you have a 4-family house, 2-story, in country club, yeah, $250,000, $300,000. Okay. So you've got a great situation. You're in a unique position where on the island of Puerto Rico, finding hard money lenders is hard. Finding lenders is hard. But because your father owns the property outright, free and clear, I assume, right? There's no debt on the
Yes.
property. And
Nope.
you can put someone in a first mortgage position. I don't think it would be very hard for you to find somebody who would lend you the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 that you need to renovate the property. A hard money loan on the island is expensive money, so you won't want to keep it forever. But you could go and get that money, and you know, maybe it costs you 5 or 6 points and 15% interest, which that's gross and obscene. Like that's really hard money. That's very expensive, but it will allow you to do everything that you want to do. And at the end of the day, you'll have that 70 grand in the property. You'll have a 4-family house that's worth 250 or 300, and it will be very easy for you to go and refinance it or sell the house then at top of the market, and it'll be an amazing flip, and then split the profits with your father or something like that. I mean, you're in a great spot there because you've got a property in a highly desirable country club. Is I think we've done 4 flips in the country club area. And so there's Country Club San Juan and Country Club Carolina.
Yeah.
I like Country Club Carolina better than I like Country Club San Juan.
Really?
And they're basically right next door to each other. But for whatever reason, Country Club Carolina seems to be more popular in my experience. It for whatever reason, it's slightly more valuable and sells a little bit faster. And literally, like, it's probably one street that divides them, and then you're in San Juan or you're in Carolina. So depending on where you are, but if you're in Carolina, I think you're in the right spot.
Could you put the address in the chat?
Sure.
Yeah.
I
And
would
here's
put-
the other thing. If you wanted, I'm sure there are lots of people inside of our community that would love to partner with you on something like that, especially if you were willing to do it as a flip. Hell, there's probably even people that would like to maybe think about a partnership if you were going to do it as Airbnb. I don't know that Country Club is the best place for Airbnb, but I certainly think they're doing Airbnb in that area. You're close enough to get to the mountains and to the beach, and you're 10 minutes from the airport, 15 minutes from the airport. So not a bad area at all.
5 minutes from the airport.
You know how cool this is that I'm sitting here now 6.5 years in, to the island of Puerto Rico, and you could tell me a neighborhood in Carolina, and I know where you're talking about. When I first came here, you could have told me Country Club Carolina, and I'd been like, what's that? Where's that? But this is fun for me that I was able to do that. Thank God you said Carolina and not Larez or something.
So I have a couple thoughts as well. If I was going to make a to-do list for this project, the first thing I would do is have a clear deal with your father in writing. I'm all about the in writing, but me and my dad do business together all the time. And all of our deals, we have a contract. We have a clear understanding of who gets what are the prices, how is it split up. It just avoids issues in the future because you have it in writing and and you have a clear understanding. So that's the first thing I would do. And then since your father owns it and you're not in a rush to purchase it, the next thing I would do is get the quotes from contractors. If you go into the flipper community, there's a man named Sheldon, and I know there's multiple other GCs in there as well. I can think of at least 2 others. But if you make a post that you need some people to come and give you some quotes, people will reach out to you and you can get started on getting detailed quotes of how much everything will cost exactly. So please use the community to do that. And then I would go and get the money, either hard money if you're planning to sell it, or I think if you have a good income, it would be possible to get a bank loan. Maybe it is Puerto Rico, so it's tougher. But if you have W-2 income and the amount of money you need is so low, you possibly could do something with a bank. They're
You know
very
what
difficult in
maybe
Puerto
would work
Rico,
too is a
but
203K loan, which is basically an FHA renovation loan. And I think a great point, McKenna. So there are definitely more than one or two people who are doing renovations inside of our community. There's a couple of people that are doing loans. I know Bill Halleck is in the community, and he'd be a great guy to talk to about a 203K or some kind of loan that you could get if you don't want to go the hard money. And there's probably a dozen people in the community that would be interested to hear about your deal and potentially partner with you. So that's what we want to see too, right? Like, so you've got a chance to put a deal together, and we want to see you put a deal together with the people inside of the community. That's just like the coolest thing ever, right? Like we're 3 weeks into this, and if we could facilitate a deal getting done, that'd be pretty sick.
that would be
Got
cool.
the property there?
Oh, I think I drove by. Oh, it's got the Aston Martin next to it. Yes, you know that one. That's right on the Carolina Iturrey.
Oh, you're right on the main road. So,
Yeah.
so there's some pros and cons to being on the main road. One, you might have to get a permit to do that because you are so visible. Two, but when you go to sell it, you're going to put a sign out there, and thousands of people are going to see that thing every week. They're going to drive past it. And I think also in that area, if I'm not mistaken, it could be a business even. Like you could do the business on the ground floor and residential on the top floor. Is that true in that area? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, a lot of those houses around there.
I think my dentist might be over there in that area in a house like that.
Okay. All right. Well, I searched some things here. Let's bring up you got any more questions, these mine, or could it move on?
If you're talking, I cannot hear you.
Ismail, if you have any more questions, then ask more questions, or we've got other people in the chat too.
I just wrote down, I do have one more question. I just wrote down, this for another property. I just wrote down your recommendations, McKenna. So I will go on with that. The situation is that my father also has land in Florida, which you guys also do.
Great.
And
Florida,
it's back
Puerto
in
Rico,
land.
or the state of Florida?
Florida, Deltona, Florida.
Deltona, Florida. Okay.
Yes.
Love Deltona.
It's another softball for us. We know Deltona.
Very
Yeah.
good. So I was trying to buy his land and build a property there because I know there are a lot of people that do constructions of new houses in Florida. That's very popular from what I
Yeah.
heard. And then sell the property. What I don't know is that what's the best way to go with that? If I should go with the regular financing, if I would go with a partner, or what is the best way to handle that? And if
What
that's
kind of income do you have? Is it
What do you mean?
W-2, 1099?
W2. I have my own company. I am my own company, but I am also an employee of my own company.
Okay. If you qualify for a bank loan, it would be very easy in Florida to get a build to own loan from a bank with good income, good credit, W-2 income. They'll love you. So I'd absolutely do that. And then I think I cut you off. Did you have a second part of that question?
No, the question now will be, if you were in my position, which of the two situations will you attack first?
You don't want to do them both at the same time, huh?
Well, maybe I can. I don't know. I don't know.
Where
No
do you
idea.
live? Where do you live?
I live in Carolina.
You live in Carolina. I'd attack Carolina.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I like to do the stuff that's very nearby that I can be at every day. So Julio talked about being able to show up at the job every day. If you start to build a house in Deltona, it's going to be very hard for you to be at the build every day. Now, if you do the house in Carolina, I would think, you know, before you go to work or on your way home from work or at lunchtime, you're going to be able to pop in, if not every day, almost every day, right? And so that to me is a big advantage. So I would start out with the low-hanging fruit, which I think is something nearby where you live, and get a success under your belt, and then go tackle the kind of harder project, which is building a house ground up, probably in Florida. Although probably way more hands off, right? Like you can partner with a builder and he'll take care of it in Florida, but I'd go with the one that's nearby where you're living.
That's wise. I agree.
I have some thoughts too about new construction, guys. Just in general, new construction is very easy to math out. It is going to cost you $165 to $175 a square foot to build. So if you're building 1,000 square foot home, it's going to cost you $175,000. That's including permits. That's including everything you need to get that house. So when you're doing the math, just go and see, are people building new construction in my area, in my neighborhood? What are they selling for? What types of house are they building? And then you can very easily get prices, just, you know, rough numbers. But if they're building 2,000 square foot homes and they're only selling for $300,000, you won't be able to build and make money. But if they're selling for $650,000, you probably have enough meat on the bone there where you can get something to work. If you guys have more questions about that, I can break that down. But I am moving my business into more new construction because I think that it's easier for me to do more at the same time. My goal is to do 10 or 15 all at once, and just build, and have a whole street done. And I'll have the crews moving from one house to the other. But I digress. I really like the new construction idea. I'm a big fan of that.
Well, and you also have this flexibility because your father owns the lot, and I'm assuming he's happy to partner with you on that and make it easy for you as well. So he can subordinate the land and allow you to get financing a little bit easier and stuff like that. So just know that you're in a great position on both of these deals. I'm excited for you.
Aaron, you're up.
Aaron.
Hey guys.
Hey, man.
So, hey, my question was sort of directed to McKenna, but he just left. So I guess I'll just pose it to the two of you guys. Oh, there he is.
I'm here, Aaron. Just getting the
All
phone
right.
charger.
So I went through the masterclass, and you know, through hours of watching you guys and talking to you, I'm hearing that we need to be making, you know, the magic number is 100 offers a week. And out of that 100, we might get one, and maybe it's 100 offers every 2 or 3 weeks. But when I think of that, I'm thinking about how much time that takes and how much time it takes to, you know, to set up a spreadsheet with all of the wholesalers and get that, you know, it all takes time. So yeah. To simplify this, my question for McKenna was, like, how is it just him? Like, McKenna, is it just you running your flipping business in Florida, or do you have a secretary, and do you have a title person, and is there an architect that you pull out of your trunk when you need one, or
who's on the team, McKenna?
Yeah, who's on your team? Is it a team of one? Is that what everybody's doing, or are you building out your team as soon as possible so that there's more productivity and you're able to move faster with the things that you're better at?
So I don't do any title. That's a very easy thing to hire out. It comes with every deal. There'll be a title person, but pretty much other than that, it's all on my own. I do the bookkeeping. I do all of the comps. I search for all the deals. I write all the contracts. Currently, I'm managing the renovations. I do have some deals with my old partner Tate where he's doing those renovations, and it's very nice when he shows up and is doing well and is managing the renovations. I love not having to do that. For me, the first person I'm going to hire when I feel like I need one is a bookkeeper. I hate doing the books. I don't like sitting there for hours. I can look at houses all day long and make offers all day long. I like that process. I don't like doing the books, so I'm going to hire that out. The contracts are very easy to write. You get a blank form, you fill it out, you get really good at it really quick. The offer process is very easy as well. You get good at it and you get good at it quick, and you make it you just get very good at all of these things pretty quickly. Like I could, if I want to go and buy a house this week coming up, I am pretty sure that I could get 100 offers on new properties that I haven't seen out into the world in probably 3 days, 4 days if I'm being a little slow. And that's just me sitting at the computer, going one house after the other, running the comps, getting the math, eyeballing the renovation. I'm not sending my contractors out there or anything. I just know how much things cost, and then I'm sending out these offers. And when I do that with my renovations too, I always eyeball on the higher end. So then if I have a surprise, I've already factored it in.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
and I think, Aaron, there's other ways to lessen the amount of work. So once you're in the business, you'll identify where you're going to be looking for these properties. So McKenna might look for most of his properties through the multiple listing service. For 20 years, I looked at my 100 properties that I was trying to look at a week would be through the foreclosure sales that were running in every county in the state of Florida, right? So I would go through, and they would give me a new list every week of all these properties, and I would just sit there and put them on a spreadsheet, put the max bid, watch the sales, and bid on these things, right? It was completely non-emotional. It's just a math problem. But I've brought it up before. I can show you like account after account where we've bid on 1,000 houses to buy 100. Like we really did that, right? And so you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to find the houses that you're going to look at. You're spending more time trying to figure out where you're going to find those houses. Are you going to go to tax deed sales? Are you going to go to foreclosure sales? Are you looking for bank-owned properties? Are you buying off of MLS or just looking for off-market? So there's a whole segment of real estate investing that only wants to buy off-market deals. I believe that there's great deals in any one of these areas. And so you pick an area that you're going to want to find properties and just start scouring. Like in Maine, your MLS may only have 500 houses on it. So you'd easily be able to look at the 500 houses that are for sale and make offers on 100 of them if you wanted to. And you could get that information fairly easily as well. You probably have a tax deed sale and a foreclosure sale, and they probably don't have big numbers, right? Like they're probably only a few places going through tax deed sale every month and only a few foreclosures. But these areas are the places where it's kind of low-hanging fruit, right? Any house that's going through the tax deed sale probably starts out at a good deal, or at least like the vast majority of them do. So that's where I chose the tax deed and the foreclosure sale, because I didn't like for a long time to negotiate with sellers. I just wanted to show up and buy it if I could buy it and it was a good deal. And if not, I'd move on.
I like that.
Which, by the way, your deal that you've got out there that we've pinned to the top of one of the places, either the flip flop or the Apex one, or maybe both, would make one hell of a flip. I know you want to keep it. You want to keep it and you want to do it as an Airbnb, and I get that. But my goodness, man, the numbers that you're getting on that as a flip are phenomenal.
I need to find somebody. I responded to, no, I know there are a ton of other questions, but I responded to your question. Yeah, I got what I asked for, Robert. So the community is working. I have had
that's why I asked. Great.
Yeah, I have had a couple of hard money lenders reach out.
Nice.
Although I don't know as though the terms are necessarily where, where I can be comfortably right now.
Right.
And I think taking an equity partner, that sounds like that just sounds better to me. That, I like not really owing anybody money except the person that I'm trying to form a real
I sleep well at
with,
night
so.
when I don't owe someone an interest payment every month,
Yep.
especially if for whatever reason things are taking longer or going bad, then that interest really hurts. It's when things are going really well and you've given up half of the equity, you go, oh, that was probably stupid. But for peace of mind and being able to sleep and, have good health, give up a little less. The real estate should be fun. It should be a team sport. So I like an equity partner for you as well. So I love that.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to a Don's deal yet. So I know
Well,
we still have questions to
yeah.
keep going, but
How dead set are you on making it the Airbnb? Like, do you have it under contract? Is your money going hard anytime soon, or?
Aaron, he's asking you. I don't know if you're still.
Are you asking me that?
Yeah, he's
Don?
asking you if are you like 100% dead set that you want to do it as an Airbnb or
No,
because I know that if you said you wanted it to be a flip, then everybody gets in line for that, right? Like as soon as you say, let's do a flip, everybody wants to be your partner.
I'm only saying that because we bought a 9-unit building in Rio Piedras, and for the month that we had it under contract, we were talking to potential investors, like equity investors. The whole time we were talking to them, we're talking about long-term rentals and potential Airbnb rentals and all this stuff. And they want to see 20 bajillion numbers. And we gave them all the numbers and all that. The second, and I think this was like a couple of days before we're supposed to close. The second I said to Robert, I'm like, hey, why don't we just flip it and just call it a day? We did that. We called the guy that kept roping us around and told him, hey, let's just make it a flip. And then instantaneous, no, what numbers?
It was like, okay,
here's the money.
Done.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
So think about it like that. Like if you really want it, maybe you could get the money, flip it, and then just buy it you with a loan or something.
Well, here's the other thing, Aaron. I know that there's another opportunity. So maybe you flip one of the two and keep one of the two. And I say this all the time. You know which one is the best one and the one that you need to fight like hell to keep, right? Don't make the mistake of making it a flip if you can fight harder and keep it. Otherwise, you'll be kicking yourself years from now. You'll be going, I sold that house on the lake, or I sold that house in the woods, or whatever it is. It's always the stuff where you look back that you have the regrets on the stuff that you didn't hold on to or that you didn't do. So just keep that in mind.
Fair enough.
And if you need to pad your pockets, flip them both, make some money. I mean, they really are the right numbers, right? You're buying them really well.
So as soon as sorry about that, McKenna. As soon as I decide to flip it, I should let you guys and let everyone know. And Adon, you're telling me like that, the magic will happen.
I mean, look, that's what happened with us. But it seems like it's the, what would you call it? Like a sexy factor. Like, you got the girl.
People want their money to move. People want to have their money flow in and out, and so there are, for every flip investor, there's half as many buy and hold investors, or maybe there's 10% as many buy and hold investors as there are flip investors. So you're going to have a room full of people that want to do the flip and only 1 or 2 people that want to do the buy and hold.
Yeah, fair enough.
Aaron, did I get all of your questions or all of your question answered on the team aspect? Perfect.
Yep. Thank you.
And thank you for telling us that it's working, that people are reaching out to you, and whoever's reaching out to Aaron, thank you for doing that. This is really what we want to see in this community. This is like, that's music to my ears.
So Nisha, go ahead.
Blake, I just saw your question. Aaron's property is pinned in the flip-flop flipper community right at the top. He's got all the info in there. Take a look at it. It's a super exciting property. Yes. Sorry, Adon, go ahead.
Nisha, you're on. If you want to turn on your camera, maybe bring on your questions.
Not really. And I don't have any questions. I was just saying I have a contractor in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, wow. I needed a contractor yesterday. I was looking for a contractor in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, I have another one in on Fort Myers Beach, but I can send you that later.
That's awesome.
Just in case.
I'm gonna sell my last 2 properties in Jacksonville, and then if I never ever go back to Jacksonville again, I'm gonna die happy, man. I'll be all right. There's nothing wrong with Jacksonville. I just don't love I just haven't loved my real estate experience there, even though I've made a ton of money.
Gotcha. Scattered.
So I'm gonna
Dad,
bring
did you
up
post in the community
Howard next.
looking for contractors in Jacksonville?
I didn't, I did not.
Yeah.
That was a bad use. I should have. I apologize.
So Howard, welcome. Let us know your questions. I think you asked about if we have any contracts for contractors.
Do you have a contract for contractors, McKenna? Hey, Howard.
I don't. I just use the quote. But Howard, go ahead with your question.
I asked the question,
Oh,
but
hi.
Perfect.
it was cleared up. So, but because of all the previous discussions and questions answered,
Yeah.
it brought up this house I have next door that's been in probate for a few years. And I'm wondering if I need a probate lawyer right now. In Lockhart, the Lockhart area, right?
Yep. Lockhart
Okay.
in Orlando?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the area.
So the houses, they're going for pretty much median is like 280, 290.
Mm-hmm.
So I just really love my street. So I'm thinking as a first timer, would this house that's in probate be too difficult?
So probate is an excellent place to find a good deal. When you're
Okay.
a real estate investor, you're looking for distress. And unfortunately, when people die, there's distress, right? There's emotion and there's tension. And I don't know the situation on the house on your street, but a lot of times what happens is that there's one relative that's kind of in town and everything falls on that person's shoulders, and the other people are out of town, just like handle it. And so that one person, if you're in touch with whoever's showing up at the house, you have a chance to solve problems for them, right? You represent the ability for them to take a weight off of their shoulders. I've just seen this time and time again where, there's two brothers and two sisters, and there's one of them that's handling everything, and the other three are just kind of along for the ride. And that one very quickly gets stressed out and is ready to move on. So I like buying probate houses, and you guys know I like buying houses that are nearby where I live. So I think this is something that you guys should at least explore. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a deal, right? Like, still got to buy it at the right price. I don't know if it needs a lot of work or anything, but yeah, it's definitely worth looking into.
Okay. And I'm sorry. Can I ask one more?
Please, please.
Okay. So, I seen this project at the beginning of last year that it was a piece of, I guess it was a house, but they tore it all down and built 3 houses on it, right on Magnolia Homes, right down the street. And that intrigued me to take one house and build 3 houses on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sold really fast because of like you were saying, if you keep it under a certain price point, it would sell even in not so good neighborhoods, so to speak.
You guys are setting me up. You keep asking me about places that I know really well. So Magnolia Homes Road, I've done a dozen properties right there in Lockhart, Magnolia Homes Road. Go ahead and finish your question, but I'm excited to answer it. So.
Okay. So, well, you got me excited, and I made him hop on board because he's a good executioner to my ideas.
Okay.
So I've been walking around, and on Riverside, there's a piece of land. It's pretty huge, a corner lot that's been on sale for probably more than a year. And I don't know if it's too ambitious for me to get into something like that, or like find make a deal on a contract for that land and maybe get a hold of construction companies that would want that contract.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That
Does that make sense?
surely makes sense. So this is just this one on Magnolia or Riverside. That's just a piece of land, just a lot, no house,
No, no house.
just land. How much can you buy it for?
Oh, I haven't looked into that.
Okay.
This is brand new because I just went on a 4-mile walk and I saw it and I was like,
McKenna, do you have some tips on who she can call to see what the land would allow her to build and stuff like that? Orange County, fortunately, is pretty easy to work with. And I think that you can make a phone call to find out what you can do with the land. McKenna, you hopefully are going to have an idea of this.
Yes, you can call. I don't know exactly what they're named in Orange County, but you could call the zoning office. There's a couple variations of the name on that, but if you Google Orange County, Florida zoning office, you should be able to get a phone number. You need to have the address, and that's about it. And you're going to ask them what is the current zoning and what is the build density on that kind of land. So, for example, if it's zoned R1, that'd be residential 1. That means that the home is zoned for single family homes. And then the density is how small the lot can be that you want to break up. Because to me, it sounds like you're buying, let's say, a half an acre, and the goal would be to cut it into 5 different lots. You build 5 homes and you make your money doing that. But if it's a half-acre lot and the density isn't big enough, you might only be able to get 2 homes on that same land, where in other neighborhoods you could get 10 homes. So that's the density and the zoning. And then and the different zonings that you're going to ask, R1 is single-family homes, R2 is duplexes, R3 plus is bigger projects, triplexes, whatever. It's not going to be R3. It'll be R1 or R2. And then you also want to ask what the future land use is if it's not a designation you like. So if it's agricultural land, I don't think it is over there, but it's probably zoned to be in the future R1. And it's very easy to change land from its current zoning to its future land use. So you can go to bigger densities. You can go from R1 to R2. You can go from R1 with a big density or a less dense to more dense, depending on the future land use. And that's just a conversation you can have with them, and they'll know, they'll look it right up, and they'll be very happy to talk to you. Just tell them what you're trying to do and that you're trying to learn. They love to educate people. And so it'll be an easy call.
I'm going to give you one more tip. I would familiarize myself with the Orange County Property Appraiser site.
Yes.
I would say 3 years ago was the best property appraiser site in the world. They've messed it up some, but it's still a really good site. You can glean a lot of information off of that site. And remember, this is a numbers game. So I like how creative you are. And I like that you guys are a good team. You're the innovator, and then you've got a guy there next to you who's going to make sure he dots all the I's and crosses all the T's. You guys are gonna be great. That's what you're looking for, right? You want to be able to think outside of the box, and you're on your way. I like the questions, and keep them coming, and keep going, guys. If anything, I'd like to say, I'll take this opportunity again to say, the heart of our community is to have you guys jump off and do your first deal. So I am always going to answer these questions, encouraging you, hey, go talk to the people who've inherited the house. Yeah, look at that zoning. Whatever you're thinking about doing, take that next step. And you don't lose anything by making the effort. And you actually gain something, even if you don't buy the house, or even if you don't buy the land. You gain a little piece of knowledge, and then you'll have that in your pocket for the next one. So,
even
and I think it's very likely that you won't get either deal. You'll talk to the neighbor and they're going to want $400,000 and they won't sell it to you. And you're going to talk to the land developer and they want $1.2 million, and it's going to be ridiculous and the math doesn't work. But going through the process, just like what he was saying, it sets you up to when you do find the deal, you are
You'll know
ready
it.
to execute.
And you'll know
it.
that you found the deal too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
So with this partnership, it's been 20 years and 3 kids. We might as well do something
Try
else,
doing a
right?
business together.
You're pretty good at making babies. Now you're going to build houses.
I love it.
I love it.
All right, thank you
I love
guys.
it. That's awesome.
Moving on to Mark. Mark, if you
Yep.
want to
Can you
let
hear
us
me?
know where you're at.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
First
How are
time,
you?
first time, long time. How you doing, Robbie?
You're the first person who's ever said that to us. Hey, all right. We must now have done this for a while. It's been almost 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I am calling in from North Jersey or in the New York City metro area, but this question is about a deal that we're under contract on that you actually toured in
Yeah.
Santurce.
Yep.
And we're undergoing due diligence right now, and part of that is understanding where our costs are going to be on a go-forward basis once we close. And so we're going through that process of identifying where the taxes are going to be, which I understand Crim is really not the most should I say efficient at updating their roles and things like that. And so one of the things that my partner did was visit Crim, and he found that this property that we're looking to buy is actually right now being assessed as a duplex, when in fact it's 16 residential units and 1 commercial unit. So it's just nowhere close. And so we're afraid basically that, once we close, Crim comes knocking a year down the road or however long down the road, and suddenly we get, reassessed and our taxes jump hugely. So we've talked to our attorney and our title company. They kind of did some kind of back of envelope calculation saying that it could go up 4 times. Now I know that we have some benefits with Act 60 where we can get a discount to property taxes and things like that. But I'm just wondering how you would approach this with the seller, knowing that the seller has really not been all that forthcoming with really anything. And I think any kind of attempt to get a credit or set aside escrow money would just probably be met with laughs.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying there. A couple things. If you do Act 60, which I think you'd be trying to do Act 60, part of your decree would be 25 cents on the dollar. So if your taxes increase 4 times, you're going to pay what they are today. Taxes don't change all that often on the island of Puerto Rico, and they're based off of like a 1956 assessment or something like that. Now the tax goes up, right? But the assessment has stayed the same for all of these years. What I think maybe you could do, because you're in an area where there are other like properties for yours, right? Like you have Raul's property across the street. I have a doctor friend who's buying a 8 or 9 unit up the street. Maybe kind of pull some information together by talking to them about what their tax bills look like and use that as a really loose benchmark. Because one thing that I will tell you about Puerto Rico, the government may treat you one way and someone else a different way, and water bills and tax bills. I mean, they're a moving target, unfortunately. But that's what I would do. I would kind of look at the other properties that are similar to yours, and there's a lot of them right there. There's probably 10 of them if you walked in a 3-block radius that are similar in size, similar in units, and maybe even find somebody who just bought something and see what has happened to them. And know that going in, once you get your Act 60 tourism tax decree, you're going to pay 25 cents on the dollar anyways. So run your numbers based on that. If you're buying it right, I can't tell you that I have a direct experience where we bought something and then the taxes were one thing and then became another. I think taxes here are generally lower than they are in the States.
Yeah.
But they make you pay twice a year. So and here's the other thing. They're not going to come take your property if you don't pay for a long time. Like you can figure some stuff out while you're gaining cash flow if you needed to. But I don't think you're going to have a problem with your taxes. What on that building, my guess is that your taxes are a couple $1,000s a year or less. Is that right?
So he's paying 2,900 now.
Okay. Yeah, that sort of makes sense. So if that went up 4 times, you'd be at 10 grand. That would be expensive. Maybe run your math, knowing that you could have a $10,000 expense. And then if it's better than that, or once you get the tax decree and it becomes better than that, then that's a win for you. Yeah.
Thanks.
In terms of getting the
That-
credit from the seller too, I would just go into the assumption that you're going to get nothing, and you need to have the deal structured to where you're making money with nothing, and then anything you get on top of that from them as a bonus. And working with tough sellers, you know, they're, like you said, they're going to laugh at you, but the worst they can do is say no. It's always worth asking. When I was a property wholesaler, I would get these contracts on houses, go and sell them. And my standard operating procedure on every single deal was to ask for a reduction. And I knew that I was going to get laughed at on some of them, but more often than I was surprised multiple times, because people are getting to the finish line. They want to be done. They want to sell the property. They've already in their mind sold it to you. And then you come and ask them for $10,000 and you kind of play hardball. People will just give it to you. And so it's worth asking. Absolutely. But make sure your math works where if they say no, it's still a good deal.
And Mark, I think that probably your seller, he's not purposefully withholding information from you. I think it's probably more that he's ignorant of it. Like, you know, he's owned the property for a long time and he doesn't know what the tax process is. So he's not, I don't think that he's purposely trying to hide something from you. You know, I don't know the situation, but typically when you're buying from an 80-year-old man, he's owned it for 25, 30 years. They just don't know what they don't know.
So quick question for you. When you bought the Surfing Turtle, it was a 4-unit home or something like that, a
Yeah.
multifamily?
Yeah.
When you sold it after you turned it into a 7-unit, did the tax change? Did you notice if there was like a tax increase?
I have no idea.
Mm.
That's a great question.
Because it would have been reassessed as now a guest house hotel or
Yeah.
something like that.
We
So,
went through the whole process. I'm sure Dave knows.
yeah.
Thank
So-
goodness I have a partner who would know that kind of thing.
should probably ask him.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we have other questions?
So that's why I have teams, guys. So
You're right.
so you let someone else take care of it.
I'm the innovator. I'm the guy who goes and buys stuff, creates all the work, causes all the problems, and then I've got a wife and a business partner that follow around behind me and make sure that I don't make any big mistakes and dot the I's and cross the T's, and they allow me to do what I do. And it is that system is a great system. So you can be an introvert or an extrovert and get a partner that's the opposite, and real estate's a team sport, right?
All right. So we got Des up. You
Hey,
want to ask your question,
Des.
Des?
Yes. Hello. Good evening, everyone.
How are you?
Hey, Des.
Hey,
I'm
we have a
alright.
video out,
So,
Des. Did you see it?
a video out.
Well,
on-
it's a clip of our talk a couple weeks ago.
Oh, no, I
sent it to
didn't
you
see it.
yesterday. All right.
I
well,
didn't see it yet.
it's in your, I texted it to you. So
Okay, thanks.
you're
I'll check.
you're a superstar.
Thanks. So McKenna, you were talking about that you used to, when you did wholesaling, you were like looking at 100 properties and maybe 100 in a week or a
Yep.
day and going through and making all these offers. So like, do you have a step-by-step process of like what made it so efficient to be able to send out so many offers and also make it so efficient to evaluate each properly so quickly?
So I do. Lots of practice is the number one thing. My time to analyze a deal when I first started was, 20 minutes, 15 minutes a deal. And now I can do it. I know in the first 30 seconds, pretty much a rough offer. And then within 2 minutes, I've got my numbers. I was working directly with sellers. So I would be negotiating directly with the seller. There's no realtor involved, nothing like that. So all of my offers would be verbal and over text message until they said yes. And then when they said yes, I would get formal contracts written up and sent over to them on DocuSign. But I didn't waste time, even making the LOI that Adon uses, which is a 1-pager. I wasn't even doing that. I would just text message them, hey, I want to buy your house for this much. Or I would tell them that on the phone. So that's how I got the offers out so quickly. And I would keep track of, you know, you need to remember what you've told everyone, because when you do this volume, you do forget. You're like, oh, I'll definitely remember Mr. Smith. And then he calls you in 3 days and you have no idea who he is. And you got to go into your notes and say, oh, I offered him X amount of money for this property. And here are the notes. For deal analysis, there are sites you can use that are paid. If you are in a state that Zillow works on, it's so easy. And I have access to the MLS, the multiple listing service. I pay $3,000 a year for it. I use Zillow more because it's quicker and it has all of the data that I need, and it works in Florida. I know if you're in Texas, Zillow doesn't have all of the sale data, or Puerto Rico, Zillow doesn't have all of the sale data. But in Florida, because of our laws, all sale data is public and Zillow has it. So I can go in there, I type in the address. And actually, there's 2 case studies in the course in the school here where I do a breakdown of me analyzing these properties. But I can type in the address, I can filter it to where I can see comparables that are sold in the past 6 months, similar size, in the neighborhood, and I just look at it on the map, and then I grow over all the photos. I'm looking for a renovated property. So if I look on the first photo and it doesn't look renovated, I don't even look at it. I just go on to the next one until I find one that's renovated. I see what it's sold for. I make sure that it's comparable. And then I want at least 2 comps. 3 is better. And then I'm shooting off the offer. I'm taking a look at the photos, if I have them, of our subject property. I eyeball a renovation amount, and then I do the quick math of, I want to be all in at 70% of
Or better.
the ARV on this deal. So my purchase price plus my renovation. And the way I do that, I get the ARV, and then I subtract my renovation, and then I get my ARV, I take 70%. So if it's 100,000, I drop it to 70,000. That's 70%, and then I subtract my renovation. So if my reno is 50,000, I can then pay $20,000, and I make that offer, and then I am on to the next one. and that's my whole process. It's in our course. I'd really love you guys to go and watch it and let us know if you like it, if you get value from it, if I go over everything in enough detail there.
For years and years, we used something called CoreLogic, which was a great paid service that we would run comps through in the States. And then I agree with McKenna. Zillow's gotten so competitive and so good, and now you can map out and see the comps in the area. In the States, Zillow is just the low-hanging fruit, the easy one to use. Doesn't work nearly as well or at all on the island of Puerto Rico. So then running comps, you're relying more on old days, like they're called comparative market analysis, that you'll have your realtor run comps for you. And Adon, you've got a couple of sites that you can kind of get some information.
Even and here on the island, when a realtor gives you a comparison, you have to go look for it yourself. For example, this week I made an offer on a house that's a 3-1 and livable space is 1,087. She's like, oh, you can sell this house for 300,000 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, send me the comparable. She sends me a comparable. The house she sent me was a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with, I think it was like 1,700 square feet. And I'm like, this can't be a comparable. Then I did my own research. I found you could probably get close to 235, but you have to go look for yourself. And a really good website that I've been using is called Red Atlas. It works well here on the island. It's not 100% yet, but it really does help.
They're doing a good job of trying to grab the information and putting it all in one central location.
Okay, so let's move on to.
Do we still have more questions? Because we haven't even gotten into Adon's deal, his first flip. So if we run out of questions, we could jump back into that and use another case study. Or if we've got other people, we'll just keep going down the line.
All right, Nelson's here. I think he's got a deal.
Nelson's got a deal. Nelson.
Hey, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we can't see you, but I can hear you.
Oh, I can turn on the lights. 1 second. There we go.
Hey, all right, now we can see you.
Hey, so I was late today because I was just talking to the realtor like late earlier today, and I found this house. This is in Barranquitas. She has not been able to get like better pictures from inside the house or anything, but she was saying the owner is very willing to sell. He's looking for a cash offer. So this is 4 units. They're just stuck one on top of the other, and the details are on the chat for each of the rooms. She's telling me it's already rented. 3 of the 4 units. They have no contracts on them, so they're just like month by month. One of the 2 of them is 400, and then the 500. I was
Two at
thinking
400, one at
to
500.
just buy and hold.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the top floor is empty right now. I was just wondering, how would you address this? Would you like to buy and hold, or would you try to just like buy it, get everybody out, renovate, flip it? Like, which side do you prefer to work? How would you address it?
So I will tell you that my MO or my preferred method would be not to throw anybody out of the house. I think I'm accused of that quite a bit, that I'm just tossing everybody out of the house, turning them into Airbnbs, and that I'm the problem. But I love the buy and hold. You've already got them rented. If you can buy it right, if the numbers work. So if you've got a couple of units at 400 and another unit at 500, and what do you think you can rent the 4th unit for?
Around, let's say 400, just to be on the safe side.
Okay. So you could be at 1,700 a month, and how much are they asking for the property?
150.
That's almost a 14% return on your money, assuming no costs and all of that. There's obviously going to be costs. So I wouldn't be offering 150, right? Like I don't think that it's like a completely unfair price for them if the house is in great shape and they're all rented out and you were making 12 or 13%, but that's probably not the case. There's probably some work that needs to be done. More than likely, well, I'll ask the question, does it have 4 meters? Are the tenants, that's a good looking building, by the way. Is that yellow building the building?
Yeah.
It has deferred maintenance.
It has some deferred maintenance, but that's a pretty good looking building. Barranquitas is where on the island? South of San Juan?
Like in the middle.
The center, in the middle.
Up in the mountains somewhere, huh?
Have you gone to see if you can find a comparable, like fixed up and sold on the market, to try to get an idea of like how much this thing could be worth if it was really nice and cash flowing well?
No. So I just found it today, so I haven't done a lot of homework. I did find a second one, but this one was 7 units and it's selling for 400. And that one does have like individual meters for electricity, and everything is way better property.
What are the rents on
that? But I'm
that?
like you guys, I didn't ask. I was just looking around. So but I could do the homework and I can bring back the info for the group. And
so I can tell you really horrible back of the napkin math that I've used in Florida and in Puerto Rico. If I'm looking at that 4-family house and I agree that it's going to rent for $1,700 a month, I'd be trying to buy that for $80,000 or less. If I could buy it for $80,000 or less, then I'm getting my money back in theory in 4 years. And that's a great deal, right? Like that's tremendous. So they're asking 150. Are they going to take my offer? If I'm trying to buy it at 80, I'm probably offering them 50 or 60. Most likely they're going to tell me no. But if I look at that 150,000 ask price and make that $60,000 offer enough times, someone will say yes. And then
Yeah.
I'll be into the house for $80,000 and I'll be getting my money back in 4 years. I don't care what the property's worth at that point. I don't need to look at one comp. All I need to know is that I agree with what the rents are going to be, and I'm buying it at a price that within 4 years or less, I get my money back. Game over. I'm all done. That's a tremendous deal. And I don't care where you buy it. I don't care if you're in Maine, in Florida, in Texas, or in Puerto Rico.
You could sell or finance it too. Make an offer there.
Yeah, there's that too. I mean, last week we talked about seller financing. That's a perfect kind of property to do that with. But yeah,
I tried. He doesn't want. He needs the cash. He was very straightforward on that. And then the last question, like, if I were to offer a deal like this to you, like, how would you pitch yourself for a deal like this?
If
you
were trying to get me to buy it from you, would be I'd want to know what it's worth, right? What can I pay for it? So what's important to me as a buyer? I want to know what do I have to pay for it? How much work does it need to fix it up to get it to be worth the top of the market? I'd like for the person selling me the house to tell me what they believe the top of the market is. Don just gave an example where the realtor said it's 300 and he didn't end up agreeing, but at least she gave him something, right? That was a kind of a number to start working off of, and what the rents are. So you know the numbers, and then present them to someone in a fashion that makes sense. Again, if you were presenting a property to me that's in Barranquitas, it probably for me has to do even better than the 4 years. Like maybe I'd want to only buy it if I could get my money back in 2.5 years. Why? Because I don't like to go to the mountains. I don't like to drive into the mountains. So I don't want to buy them. And I've pretty much stayed true to that for 6.5 years. I've only occasionally ventured up into the mountains a couple times on the Pork Road. And, one time we bought something in the mountains of Caguas, but really I've stayed out of buying up there just because I know that I don't enjoy going up there. And then it's harder to be there every day. The renovations are harder. The management is harder. So whenever something becomes harder, I want it to be better, right? So if my rule is 70%, but I got to buy it in Jacksonville, Florida, which I hate, then I got to buy it at 50%, right? I mean, would I go back to Jacksonville and buy more real estate? I would, of course, if it was a good enough deal. Something could entice me to get there, but it's going to have to be one hell of a deal. So, but that's what I think you need to be working on if you're trying to wholesale or find a way to present to other real estate investors. You know, what can that real estate investor buy it from you for? What's it worth after it's fixed up? How much money does it need to be fixed up? And what are the rents on it after it's fixed up? Those four things.
If you're looking for a presentation that you can steal, hopefully Aaron's okay with this, but he has a really well done presentation pinned in the Flip Flop Flipper community. Go in there and take a look at it, and I would copy everything he did. I was looking at it just the other day. It's well organized. The numbers are very prominent. It's easy to read, and it's very copyable. You just plug in, copy and paste your own numbers into this format.
Blake is up.
Hey, Blake.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
You're dark too, but it's going well.
A couple questions. Yeah, I don't have this studio lighting, but a couple questions. You guys just touched on one of them. You said Red Atlas add-on was something you were using for comps. Did you have anything else on comps, or is that pretty much your go-to on comps in Puerto Rico?
I've been using Red Atlas for now. Before that, I would go into Clasificados, and Clasificados has a section where it shows you things that have been optioned and sold already. So you could try to use that. And if you really want to get technical, you go to the property that got sold and then go to their CRIM, and hopefully they already registered it that it's sold, and you should be able to see the final sales price there. But other than that, it is tough to find comparables.
I rely on my realtor. So I've been here for 6.5 years. I don't think I've ever run a comp, not one time. And I've done a bunch of successful flips. I've bought a bunch of properties where we cash flow really well. And I like to ask my realtor to provide the comps. So they're able to get them and give them to me in a way that maybe isn't as organized as a professionally done comparative market analysis. But even if they'll just show me things in the neighborhood that have just sold, and then I'll take those and compare apples to apples. What is the square footage of the one they're showing me versus the one I'm buying? And if they do that, then I use that and I rely on my realtor to give me those comps.
You also rely on the math when you're looking at properties that have multiple units or an Airbnb project, whatever it is. You then, instead of looking at sales data, you're doing cap rates, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm looking at, like I just said a few minutes ago, how quickly can I get my money back? And if I'm buying long-term rental, for instance, anything that I can get my money back in 4 years, I'm really looking at it. If it's like 3 years or 2 years, if it's 2 years, then I'm really, really looking at it, right? Like, so that's right. I mean, how much money am I going to put out? When am I going to get it back? And if I'm right on those numbers, and if I'm thinking I'm going to get it back in 4 years and it takes me 6 years, that's still a hell of an investment. I'm usually not going to be upset with that. So that's right, McKenna. I mean, we're being a buy and hold investor. It's a lot easier because you're just looking at what is the actual amount of dollars out versus the amount of dollars that come in every year. And if you're happy with your rate of return, it's an easy thing to say yes to. And truthfully, I don't care what things have sold for in the neighborhood. If the 4-family in Barranquitas, if I can buy it for 60 grand and I know that I can rent it out and get 20 grand a year of something close to net income, what's there to think about? I mean, that's 30% on your money. You don't, as real estate investors, guys, you don't need to make it super difficult, right? And if you can like double and triple like average returns, if 10% is good and you can get 30%, let's just do it.
I put in the chat, I think Nelson was asking, this is kind of like a presentation I put together as well for the deal I'm in, when I was trying to wholesale it forward. And it kind of gives you, you know, a little synopsis, how many rooms, all that stuff, obviously contact info. And the more important things are like the AVR, long-term rental, short-term rentals, and all that stuff. Like those are key to when you're looking at these things. I would imagine when you get the wholesale emails, it has all that stuff quickly and accessible. You don't want to be trying to figure out these things. You want to work with what they gave you. And
yeah,
that's true.
That's another good way to figure out what the wheel looks like. Invite yourself into somebody's email list that's doing this. So a wholesaler like McKenna was, he had a format that he would email out his properties for sale. And so if you do what we say in the course and you call all of the wholesalers in your area and ask them to be on their email list, they'll show you exactly how to present a deal to other real estate investors.
Yeah.
And by the way, it doesn't matter if you've ever bought a house before or out of work, don't have any money and bad credit. If you call a wholesaler and tell him you want him to email it, that you want to be on his email list, 100% of the time they will start emailing you houses. Like that's their business. So that this is just a little way to kind of game the system. And we can show you more examples of it, but that's a really easy one.
Yeah. Do you want to go into the deal or?
If you want.
Well, I could just go through it real quick.
Let's go through a Don's first flip. So this is a fix and flip masterclass, and we're all talking about our first flip.
I possibly picked the hardest flip to do for my first flip. I picked a 5-unit multifamily to convert into 4 units, and I thought I was going to get it done in 3 months and everything, and it just did not work out. So a little bit of the deal. The seller was asking $250,000. I was able to negotiate it to $215,000 with seller financing. We paid off I think $90,000 debt they had on the house, and then gave them
It was
10,000 cash.
115,000 we paid off in debt, and we owed them 90,000 on payments, I think. They did seller financing at 0% interest.
Yeah, because I think the 90 plus the 10 that they took in cash.
Oh, okay. We gave them, yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so
We gave
everything
them
else was
110, 115, right?
was financed. So
And we financed the extra 90 at 0% interest.
at 0% interest, yeah. So we started with an $80,000 budget, and today we found out it's not $80,000 anymore. We definitely gone over, but we believe that after the repair value is anywhere from 500,000, 550,000 to 600,000. So I think we're pretty safe still, but it was a headache. And
How many contractors have you had out there?
8.
I thought you were going to say 4.
Nope.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you. I know that's been difficult. And guys, so Adon has run the show on this. Like we've done now 5 or 6 things together, but this one, and it's beautiful
over time.
But this one, Adon, he's the guy that's there every day. He's the one that's buying the materials. He's the one who's negotiating with the contractors, and he calls up and we talk about it, of course, you know, lots and lots. And I go out there sometimes, but I'm extremely hands off on this. Like I don't think I've ever talked to the contractor, not any one of the 8 of them. I just show up and walk around and look and see what's going on and let Adon run the show. So, you know, even though it's been hard, it's gone longer than we thought, and it's cost more money than we thought. At the end of the day, we're still going to make the money. And what it does is it sets Adon up to learn so much from having gone through the process.
Yes.
This is what it looked like before when we were looking at buying it. And so it sets Adon up to know how to go through the process, and it sets me up to be able to invest with Adon, hopefully for the next 30 years, right? Like, so that's kind of why I like doing deals with the younger guys, and McKenna's doing stuff in Orlando, Adon's doing stuff here, is that, you know, one day, 25 years from now, I'm going to have to slow down, and then hopefully they can just keep running.
You could tell yourself that lie, that you're going to slow down.
Well,
he's never going to slow down, guys.
I have slowed down a lot. I haven't bought anything,
but it's against your will.
Yeah, I do feel like someone put a bridle on me and it's holding me back.
So this is what it's supposed to look like by the end of it. Yes. So we do have the pergolas in place. Everything's in place. Everything's getting painted this week. Today I just came from the site. There's doors going there. So like I said, things I learned from this place is not to hand out, not, you know, you can get a full-on general contractor, but I believe, especially for here, it's easier to get the guy and just phase him out as much as possible. Don't do 4-phase systems. Just phase everything out and give deadlines, because as much as you could be like, hey, I'll give you an extra $2,000 if you can finish tomorrow, they'll be like, well, you know, we'll see.
Yeah.
And it's really, really tough.
And we got burned at the start. We hired a contractor who was going to do everything from A to Z, and we gave him some money, and then he got sick and stopped showing up. And then when he did show up, he'd ask for more money, and we were just like, well, we've given you too much money, you haven't done any work. And so we ended up letting him go, and then that was the only one that I really kind of knew what was going on. After that, you've gone through a few different, but nobody else has really gotten that far ahead of us. They come in to do a job, and they do their job, and you pay them, and then you go to the next person, he does his job. And so you've GC'd this. You've been the guy who's handled all of the different subs. You've managed the plumber and the electrician and the guy. We had welders, you know, so we put those pergolas up there, and you got the windows built from a local manufacturer.
Yes.
The kitchens, all of it.
And we did
a good job, even though it's cost more than it should and taken longer than it should.
A year.
I think overall I'm happy with what's happened, and I've sat back and let you kind of beat your head against the wall to learn the lesson.
Yep.
And I think the next one will go smoother. And so that's what real estate investing is all about, guys. Like, don't be afraid to start, because you can sit and listen to us talk about this every day for the next year. And unless you start by buying your first property, you're never going to really learn how to do this stuff. So I really, like I said earlier, I'm encouraging you guys to take that next step. Don't be afraid of what could happen. Just jump in and do it, because even when it's hard, Don, it's still worth it, right?
No, there's no doubt about it that it's super worth it. I think it's it's been a full-on learning process, but big takeaways from this was what we mentioned in the beginning, how to deal with contractors, how the next one is definitely not going to go this way, and that was my biggest lesson out of this one. And from there, I didn't let this just be my only flip. We have the 9 unit, we have San Ignacio, you know, and all of them have taught me something different. And
one day you're going to get paid.
Eventually, I hope.
I hope too. We've got a lot of money out there invested, and it's been a lot of work, but it's been a pretty short period of time, you know, to do $1 million worth of investment in a year. And we're finishing things up now that are going to sell and make money.
So we got some questions about pulling permits. What we've been doing for some of these flips, for example, like in San Juan, where they could be kind of sticklers for permits and stuff like that, we go to an engineering firm and they would do the permit work for us. So he goes and says, okay, we need for example, if it's simple fix and flip in more interior than anything, then they ask you for a specific permit. I forget what it's called. The permit that we always get.
Oh, exempt permit.
The
exempt permit is the simple stuff.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that's non-structural, that's easy. It's supposed to be that you can get that permit very quickly.
Yes.
On the island, and sometimes you can. And then if you're doing bigger stuff, then you have to get a full-on permit with drawings and stuff like that. And I will tell you, permitting on the island of Puerto Rico has only gotten harder over the last 6 years. So when I showed up after Maria, you were just go do anything you want, fix anything you want, right out in the open. Nobody was saying anything to you. The further we got away from the storm, then they hired some people to start driving around and looking kind of similar to code enforcement. And now if you're visible, you really do need a permit. So, you know, 6 years ago, we did massive renovations with no permits and nobody said anything.
Yeah.
Now, if we're in the wrong place and we're changing a window, we need a permit.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, if you get the exempt permit, it could cover everything inside that you do. And if you change a window, they won't bother you. The only reason they came and bothered us in this project was because we had to change the power meter from the back of the house to the front of the house because of safety concerns of going up the stairs and, you know, getting electrocuted and stuff. But that's the only, that's when code enforcement came and gave me the fine.
Because we didn't have that permit.
No, we had the permit, but it's because it was an exempt permit and not a whatever permit you need to do anything outside.
Yeah.
So I got to go argue with them. But someone asked, where's this deal? This is in Rio Piedra. So this is what you would call a college town. We have a comparable there that sold for 750,000.
Yeah. Half a block away.
Yeah.
A really good comp for us. Little bit bigger building and a few more units, but
no, it's 4 units.
Oh, it is? I thought it was 7 units.
It's 4 units.
Four units. Our units, I think, are 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Our 2 4-bedroom, 2-bath units are nicer than the other buildings units, but that other building, I think, is a little bit bigger.
Well, the difference, the major factor and difference in that building, it has individual power meters. We only have 2.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the biggest factor there. They have ACs. We're not putting in ACs, but you know,
we will put in ACs with the full price offer though. So
100%. But that's about it. If you guys have questions about that, and if you're on the island, by the way, and you want to go see these projects, just let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll take you and show you what we're doing. And you know, we're basically an open book. And I would suggest, if you haven't taken the course yet, the course really has a lot of good information just to, know how to do the math, know how to do driving for dollars. And my favorite part of the course is the case studies. I think you guys did good jobs on case studies there that everybody can really get a lot out of that. The biggest, and I would say, wall for me was saying, I don't know how to talk to other people about my deal or any of this stuff, or do I have to be so specific or this scientific? And when you see the course study, it really opens it up to be like, oh, look, it's a simple conversation. Is like, as long as I know what I need to know, I'll be able to ask the right questions here and get the price I want.
Yeah.
So definitely go look at those things. It's really, really good. And for everybody here in Apex, it's free. So, and we're shooting more.
So guys, I think we're coming to the end of this. I don't know if we have a couple more questions. We could answer them, but this has been a fun conversation for me. I think there are a few of you guys that are just on the cusp of doing some stuff and jumping into the real estate investing world. I'd love to challenge you to take action. And that doesn't mean you have to go buy a house in a week like I did when I first started out, but don't sit around not doing it or thinking about doing it for 6 months or a year. The sooner you get into doing it, the better it is for you. The quicker you'll start to learn the stuff, and you have a community. You've already taken the step of joining a community of people that want to see you be successful. And it's not just McKenna and Adon and I that want to see you successful, but hopefully everybody in the community wants everybody to be successful. And I believe that's our heart. So McKenna, you wanted to ask that everybody puts a post in afterwards.
Hey guys, a huge favor for us. Though we would love to drive engagement, encourage networking. And the way I've thought of doing that, if you guys could all go into the Apex group after this call or right now, if you're on your computer, make a post, just, titled Fix and Flip Mastermind, whatever it is, and tell us your biggest takeaway of the night. We want to know where you found value. We want to know what we should focus on more. We want to hear from you. We want feedback. So if you could all go make a post, that would help us out tremendously. It helps us get focused on what we need to do more of and what we need to do less of. So thanks, guys.
Yep.
Just real quick. For next week, Act 60 or long-term rentals or wholesaling. Let us know in the chat which masterclass we're going after.
Did we have a poll out in one of the groups, McKenna? Was that in Apex where people were kind of voting on this stuff, or
Act 60, Act 60, Act 60.
Act 60.
People love Act 60. In the Flip-Flop Flipper group, I asked people what they wanted to learn. I'll make one for Apex of different course subjects for masterminds.
All right. So I see Act 60 is very popular, and I'll tell you what, I will do my very, very best to make next week's masterclass on Act 60. I want to bring in an expert other than myself. While I've been through Act 60 several times, I think I can talk about it, but I'll try and go and find someone else who we can put here with us that will bring alongside of us, so that we'll really be able to talk to someone who knows the ins and outs of all parts of Act 60. I know the ins and outs of the tourism Act 60, but there are portions of Act 60 that I've never had any experience with. So I'll do my best to get an expert and have that be next week. If not, I'll do it in the very near future, where we'll bring in an expert and do an Act 60 masterclass.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's awesome. You guys, thanks. This was great questions. Everybody, you guys really delivered, and let's go buy some real estate, get in the game. I really, really want to see this community buying real estate together.
Yeah.
That is truly my heart.
Please let us know your milestones when you're making your first offer, when you get your first offer accepted. Let us know, post pictures. We want to celebrate with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Are we good?
Yeah. Just real quick, is there interest in making any of these master classes courses? So obviously we did the fix and flip, but does anybody want to see like a more in detail course of maybe seller financing or
I think we're gonna have a
long-term rentals
wholesale
and stuff
course.
like that?
We're planning a wholesale course. That'll probably be our next course that we'll do. And I've got a good friend who's a top-notch wholesaler that will help me with that course. So you guys will really like that. And yeah, tell us what the courses are. We're always going to be adding into that and building a library. So what are the things that that you guys would like to see in there? And we'll do our best to get it in there as fast as possible.
Julio, go
Well-
look at the course. I think it'll be very beneficial. Go ahead.
Julio's actually looked at the course.
Yep.
Yeah. Julio's the one. Has anybody else watched the course? I know Julio has been in there watching it and going through it. Hopefully some others have checked it out. Give us feedback on this stuff too. Let us know what you think of it. Where can we
Yeah.
fill in gaps if we missed anything? So
All right. Well, thanks very much, guys. And
yeah, let's end it there, guys. This was great. We'll see you next week on next week's masterclass. Hopefully it'll be Act 60, but we'll let you know as we get closer to that. And we'll see you next week. God bless.
see you next week. Bye.
Bye.